honored guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Gauteng Council of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, I welcome you to the introductory program for today's Yom HaShoah ceremony. This year, we emphasize the theme of passing the torch of remembrance to the next generation. In this regard, we are gratified to have as participants on this program two of the great-grandchildren of the late Cecilia Borochovitz, one of our local Holocaust survivors. Joshua and Tali Pimstein will speak to us about their great-grandmother and the legacy she passed on to them. This will be followed by the singing of the famous song, Eli, Eli, by Melissa Krawitz. Eli, Eli, also known by its official title, Halika L'Keisara, A Walk to Caesarea, is based on a poem written by Hungarian Jewish resistance fighter Hannah Senesh in 1942, a stirring paean to hope and resilience. It is the most commonly played song on Yom HaShoah in Israel and is considered as one of Israel's unofficial anthems. The main Yom HaShoah program will commence around 12 o'clock with the traditional reading of the names of victims by learners from King David Linksfield and Victory Park and Yeshiva College. I thank you all again for joining us today on this important occasion.
Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש תפילת האדם.
Eight years old, standing in the city hall in Dvinsk, Latvia. Her heart is racing. She's filled with nerves as she wonders if she'll be good enough. She takes a deep breath and begins to play, each swift note after the next, with her bow placed in the perfect position. She drowns out the noise. All she's able to hear is the beautiful melody flowing through the heart of her violin. The audience applaud and cheer as they reward her with a well-deserved standing ovation. This is the wonder child, the child prodigy, loved and admired by all. This was our late great-grandmother, Cecilia Borochovitz, born on the 16th of May in 1924 in Dvinsk, Latvia. This Wunderkind furthered her musical studies and moved to Riga. War became imminent as Germany invaded Russia. 17-year-old Cecilia was determined to return home to her beloved family in Dvinsk. With violin in hand, she caught the very last train home. Life had changed for the worse, and the future for the Jews was pessimistic and bleak.
All the men in the town were humiliated by the Nazi and Latvian guards. Many had their beards ripped off, had to behave like animals, and were then shot. Luckily, Cecilia's father and uncle were able to escape. However, the reunion back at home was cut short. 6 Latvian brutes wearing Nazi armbands invaded the house and demanded that everyone leave without taking a single thing. Flabbergasted, Cecilia's mother, Rachel, reached for her coat and was slapped by the arrogant Nazi guard. All the Jews in the town were herded like cattle into the shul. This shul, once a place of spiritual light and inspiration, became an overcrowded prison cell, a place of torture, a place of brutality. During the separation process of men and women, Cecilia's father, Pavel, handed her a gold watch with a handkerchief wrapped around it. He knew he would never need it again. She held on to this hanky throughout the Holocaust. Today, it is displayed in the Johannesburg Holocaust Center. Cecilia and her sister Nadia were determined to get out from the terrified mass of traumatized Jews. They approached the soldier guarding the door, and using her Jewish chutzpah, she said to the guard in the most eloquent Latvian, "There has been a terrible mistake. We are not Jewish." The guard believed her and freed the sisters. What a miracle.
Who would help these sisters on the run? Who would give them a fighting chance of survival? There was no choice but to turn to Cecilia's music professor, Paul Krumminch. He hid the girls under a bed in his home, where they were forbidden from talking, coughing, or using the bathroom until after 10 o'clock at night, due to the risk of being discovered. From arranging places of safety to organizing false passports for the sisters, Paul Krumminch risked his family's life as well as his own. He was the epitome of a righteous Gentile. The sisters received new identities. They were suddenly engulfed with constant anxiety and fear of being recognized. From spending nights alongside animals in a shed on a farm, to holding onto the outside railings on a train in the freezing snow, Cecilia and her sister endured the most horrendous conditions. What had become of humanity?
A new law was passed that ID pictures had to be attached to their documents. Upon Cecilia and Nadia's collection of their new documents at the police station, a resident of the town recognized Cecilia as the Wunderkind. This resident immediately announced that they were both Jewish. The sisters were arrested and detained. The prison was overwhelmed by screaming and hysteria. There were rumors going around that a Jewish prisoner had just been raped. Cecilia believed her fate had been determined. As the prison guard opened their cell, she thought this was the end. To her absolute astonishment, the sisters were set free with no explanation. Paul Krumminch had once again managed to save them from the belly of the Nazi beasts.
While on their treacherous search for freedom and safety, the sisters needed to cross a heavily guarded bridge. Their identity documents became invalid, and they believed there was no hope of survival. They sat in the freezing snow and began to recite the most powerful Jewish prayer, the Shema. They were about to take cyanide tablets when suddenly a truck carrying Russian prisoners of war slid on the ice and crashed into the barrier. This distracted all the guards, allowing Cecilia and Nadia to cross the bridge safely. The hand of Hashem could not have been more evident.
Cecilia and Nadia eventually landed up in the Vilna ghetto. Conditions were horrific. Disease was rife. Jews were being murdered daily. However, the Jewish spirit would not be broken. An orchestra was put together and a violin was organized for Cecilia. She would perform every night to try and uplift the weary and depleted souls of the Jews. Her violin became the extension of her soul. In the middle of the night, one of the ghetto guards came to warn the sisters that the ghetto was going to be liquidated and everyone was going to be killed the following day. Crawling through broken windows and over the rooftops, the girls were able to escape. They made their way to a Lithuanian man, Jose Rutkauskas, who was well known in the underground world for organizing passports for Jews to work in Austria.
A position as a violinist in the Vienna Symphony Orchestra was offered to Cecilia. She was once again able to display the mark of a virtuoso as she performed with grace and excellence. The audience was filled with Nazi guards who had returned from the battlefront. How ironic for this young Jewish girl who was the target of death to be performing for the Nazis, her predators. After the war ended, Cecilia and Nadia were given refuge in a Russian camp. Eventually, the sisters found safety in Rome. Cecilia auditioned to study at the famous Santa Cecilia Music Conservatory. She exceeded their expectations and was not only offered a scholarship, but a violin, which no doubt came from the looted collection of Jewish instruments. Today, this violin, together with her music bag, which she had with her throughout the war, are on display at the Johannesburg Holocaust Center.
Cecilia met her husband, Salomon Borochovitz, who was a survivor of 4 years in the Dachau labor camp. They were married in the great shul in the musical capital of the world, Rome, and moved to South Africa to rebuild their lives and the family which they had both lost. Salomon and Cecilia have 26 descendants to date, thanks to the great humanitarian, Paul Crumage. I've had the privilege of visiting the tree planted in honor of Paul Crumage in the Isle of the Righteous at Yad Vashem. Cecilia never lost her passion for music and regularly performed for the Johannesburg Symphony Orchestra and the community. We vividly remember going to watch Granny Celia performing at Levenhof Hoërskool a few years back. We are both privileged to have inherited Granny Celia's innate love and appreciation for music.
Elie Wiesel once said, "Whoever listens to a witness becomes a witness." Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our great Granny Celia's story, her legacy. We are now all witnesses, and it is up to us to ensure that we learn from the mistakes of the past. Without being able to learn from the past, there will be no future. We will remember.
Granny Celia, thank you for telling us your stories. Thank you for ensuring that the past is never forgotten. Thank you for showing us what belief in Hashem is all about. You are an inspiration to all of us. Both you and Grandpa Solly survived so that we could be here today. We will continue to tell your story and ensure that the Jewish flame continues to burn. Thank you.
From Poland, Sarah Abramson, age 23, perished, Latvia, 1941. From Czechoslovakia, Penina Adler, age 42, perished, Auschwitz, 1942. From Amsterdam, Louis Koopman, age 2, perished, Sobibor, 1943. From Odessa, Alexandra Koila, age 6, perished, Slobotka, 1943. From Romania, Bernard Altman, age 47, perished, Ukraine, 1942.
From Lithuania, Menachem Amsterdamski, age 19, perished, Germany, 1945. From Greece, Isaac Angel, age 64, perished, Poland, 1940. From Krakow, Hunik Lieberman, age 10, perished, Plassau, 1942. From Tarnopol, Bumik Winkler, age 5, perished, Belzec, 1942. From France, Micheline Aronson, age 23, perished, Auschwitz, 1944.
From Germany, Frieda Oppenheimer, age 54, perished, Auschwitz, 1942. From Romania, Yadel Gutman, age 22, perished, Ukraine, 1942. From Poland, Rachel Gelbart, aged 40, perished, Auschwitz, 1942. From Lithuania, Jacob Dayan, age 30, perished, Lithuania, 1941. From USSR, Ephraim Veinman, age 35, perished, Ukraine, 1942.
From Czechoslovakia, Clara Weinstein, age 48, perished, Auschwitz, 1943. From Austria, Nathan Triebfeder, age 66, perished, Italy, 1944. From Satmar, Joel Weinstein, age 7, perished, Auschwitz, 1944. From Riga, Fayen Broca, age 2, perished, Riga, 1941. From Poland, Judith Joskovich, age 60, perished, Poland, 1942.
From Poland, Samuel Katz, age 57, perished, Poland, 1942. From the Netherlands, Esther Cohen, age 49, perished, Auschwitz, 1942. From Greece, Mary Cohen, age 43, perished, Auschwitz, 1943. From Hungary, Leah Cohen, age 50, perished, Auschwitz, 1944. From Petrovac, Esther Silber, age 9, perished, Auschwitz, 1944.
From Austria, Anshul Kamil, age 30, perished, Auschwitz, 1943. From Poland, Jenny Rappaport, age 42, perished, Belzec, 1942. From Germany, Rose Steinberg, age 55, perished, Auschwitz, 1943. From Bucharest, Tamara Schwartz, age 4, perished, Black Sea, 1942. From Den Haag, Robbie van Metz, age 10, perished, Auschwitz, 1943.
From Romania, Chava Sterenberg, age 36, perished, Transnistria, 1941. From Yugoslavia, Mixa Kiss, age 57, perished, Budapest, 1944. From Poland, Libby Kleinman, age 25, perished, Belzec, 1942. From USSR, Flora Nobleman, age 53, perished, Odessa, 1941. From Poland, Jakub Krystal, age 18, perished, Chelmno, 1941.
From Lithuania, Burl Rudansky, age 36, perished, Lithuania 1943. From Poland, Alexander Raviks, age 28, perished, Poland 1943. From Poland, Stephanie Arnold, age 32, perished, Belzec 1942. From France, Elise Barton, age 70, perished, Auschwitz 1943. From Kiev, Ezia Steinberg, age 6, perished, Babi Yar 1941.
From Riga, Gita Abramovich, age 5, perished in Riga 1941. From USSR, Lazar Rubinstein, age 42, perished in Latvia 1944. From Hungary, Janel Grossman, age 32, perished in Auschwitz 1944. From USSR, Yakov Lukatsky, age 25, perished in Russia 1942. From Romania, David Matsur, age 30, perished in Romania 1941.
The Worldwide Holocaust Memorial Project, and to every person there is a name, is a unique project designed to perpetuate the memory of those who perished in the Shoah through the public recitation of their names on Yom HaShoah. Emphasis is put on the millions of individuals, men, women, and children, who were lost to the Jewish people, and not solely on the cold intangibility embodied in the term the 6 million. Whilst the Nazis were determined to murder every last Jew before the war ended, Yad Vashem, the coordinator of this project, is committed to leave no stone unturned in its effort to retrieve the memory of the life of every Jew killed in the Holocaust, until the very last name. Since 1999, it has been collecting pages of testimony, and these have been submitted and incorporated into the Hall of Names. The search is still on and more urgent than ever before the survivors leave this world. Unable to express the complete life story of each victim, of each world that was extinguished, Yad Vashem has sought to convey its loss through gathering for eternity, the one symbol of identity the victims left behind, their names.
Everyone has a name written by Zelda. Everyone has a name given to him by God and given to him by his parents. Everyone has a name given to him by his stature and the way he smiles, and given to him by his clothing.
L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo ha'arim, v'natnu lo ktalav. L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo hamazalot, v'natnu lo shchenav.
Everyone has a name given to him by his sins and given to him by his longing. Everyone has a name given to him by his enemies and given to him by his love.
L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo chagav, v'natna lo malachto. L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatnu lo tkufot hashana, v'natan lo ivrono. L'chol ish yesh shem, shenatan lo hayam, v'natan lo moto.
His Excellency, the Ambassador of the State of Israel to South Africa, and Mrs. Belot Serkovsky, esteemed Rabbonim, members of the Diplomatic Corps, honored guests, those joining online, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Gauteng Council of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, I welcome you to this year's Yom HaShoah ceremony. On this day, Jews throughout the world gather to remember the victims of the genocide perpetrated by the regime of Nazi Germany against European Jewry. We remember the 6 million who died, but also the survivors who endured innumerable horrors and the countless others who were left bereaved. We remember the unbridled hatred, the demonization, and the dehumanization of an entire people that made such atrocities possible, and we commit ourselves anew to fighting the scourge whenever and wherever it surfaces. It is all the more important to do so because anti-Semitism did not end after the Second World War. Under Nazi occupation, every Jew was targeted for annihilation, whoever they were and wherever they might be. Seen in that light, we too must regard ourselves as being survivors of the Holocaust. We need also to be alert to the reality that while the Nazi regime perished in the ruins of Berlin, the hateful ideology it espoused endured in various forms to this day. Remembrance, together with constant vigilance, is therefore a duty that is incumbent upon us all as the last of that generation who lived through those atrocities passes into history. It has become particularly incumbent upon ourselves and our successors never to forget. We are thus deeply privileged today to present a stirring example of how these fundamental messages are being passed on to the next generation. Lily Ebbett is a survivor of Auschwitz-Birkenau. While her mother and other close family members were murdered, she survived the death camp and after the war built a new life for herself. Last year, Lily and her great-grandson, Dov Foreman, embarked on a memorable intergenerational project aimed at bringing her story to the world. This has been an outstanding success, in large part thanks to the multitude of opportunities provided by modern communication technologies. We are honored today to be able to present an interview with Lily Ebbett, specially conducted for today's commemoration by the board's National Vice President, Mary Klook. After an absence of 3 years, we once again are blessed as a community to be able to come together in person to observe the solemn day of remembrance. I thank everyone for joining us for this important and meaningful occasion. We now come to the traditional lighting of the 6 memorial lamps. As in the past, we are privileged to have among us the survivors to perform this function in memory of the 6 million victims who perished through mass execution in the ghettos, in transit to slave labor camps, in extermination and concentration camps. Irene Feynman, near Kraus, born in Netherlands, survived Westerbork and Ravensbrück concentration camp. Romania survived the Yessi massacre. Helen Lehman, near Kaluska, born in Poland, survived through escaping German-occupied Poland, first to Soviet-occupied Vladivostok, and then departed by the Soviets to Siberia, moved from Siberia to Kazakhstan. Irene Klaas near Stiller, born in Lodz, Poland, survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto, and lived under false identity until the end of the war. Adi Wanda, born in Romania, where he survived the Holocaust. Reverend Joseph Mansa, born in France, survived the war as a hidden child in France.
Tanya?
When a young Jewish inmate of the Vilna ghetto, Hirsch Glick, heard the news of the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, he was inspired to write the lyrics to what is popularly known as the Partisan Song. Glick's lyrics were set to music from a pre-war Soviet song written by the Pakras brothers, Dmitry and Daniel Pakras. It became the anthem of Jewish underground resistance movement in World War II, and it is perhaps one of the best-known Jewish songs created during the Holocaust. It spread with remarkable rapidity to other ghettos and camps. The song is powerful and defiantly optimistic, acknowledging Jewish suffering in the past and present, and urging the Jewish people to continue to fight for their survival. In addition to raising the morale of fighters against the Nazis, it can also be an inspiration to new generations if they know about it. To ensure that this magnificent song and its stirring message is not lost, World Ort is currently supporting a campaign to introduce it to school children around the world. The result has moved groups of students at World Ort schools in Kiev, Odessa, Kishinev, Vilnius, Tallinn, Moscow, Kazan, Samara, and Mexico to prepare videos for Yom HaShoah singing the anthem. The various renditions can be accessed on the internet.
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst im letzten Weg, wenn Himmeln bleiben, verstehen Leute. Kommen wird doch unser Eisgewähnte schon, es wird erbeugten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Kommen wird doch unser Eisgewähnte schon, es wird erbeugten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Im armen Land bis Land von weißem Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Bein, mit unser Weg. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut, sprotzen weg dort unser Kure, unser Mund. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut, sprotzen weg dort unser Kure, unser Mund. Die Morgensonne begildet uns dem Heim und der Nächte wird verschwinden mitten frei. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor, wie a Parol so geht das Lied von Gottes Flor. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor, wie a Parol so geht das Lied von Gott zu Gott. Wenn ist das Licht mit Not und nicht mit Tag. Es ist nicht kein Hilf und Erfolge läuft der frei. Das Wort davon zu wischen fallen nicht gewählt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hände. Das Wort davon zu wischen fallen nicht gewählt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gannes in die Hände. Nicht einmal, als du gehst im letzten Weg, wenn Himmeln bleiben, verstellen neue Tage. Kommen wenn doch unser Ausgewählte schon, es wird erbeuten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Kommen wenn doch unser Ausgewählte schon, es wird erbeuten unser Trott, wir seinen da. Partisanen, Partisanen, Partisanen.
You may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we've gathered here today to remember our brothers and sisters, Jews from all over Europe and North Africa, who were murdered in the greatest and most monstrous and sophisticated slaughter machine for human beings. The Holocaust is a scar on the face of the humanity, a scar that should never heal. A scar that should constantly remind us as human beings how a civilized and cultural nation in the middle of Europe could be harnessed by a group of criminals that were motivated by racist ideology just in order to exterminate the Jewish people. To this day, the Yad Vashem Institute of Research of Holocaust have granted the title of Hasidu Mot Olam, the righteous amongst nations, to 28,000 people who followed their moral values and lent a helping hand to the persecuted Jews. And yet, this was just a minuscule fraction compared to those who passively or even actively participated in the Holocaust, and those who were only so-called innocent bystanders. Much more could have been done to save the Jews. The Allies could have bombed the death camps, destroyed the terrible extermination machine, or at least demolished the railway tracks that led to the camps. None of these were considered a worthy target. Unfortunately, the messages of the Holocaust were not really heard. Even today, there are those that preach hatred to the Jewish people and the Jewish state. Some do it openly, some try to hide behind all kinds of political slogans, although the agenda of these groups is very clear. Destruction of Israel, the only Jewish state where Jews can be sure of finding a safe haven from persecution. We are all familiar with the historical events that led to the Holocaust. The main issue is what lessons we can draw from this terrible history. In my opinion, the main conclusion is that we Jews can rely only on ourselves for our defense. We have the state of Israel, which is strong, not only because of its powerful army, but mainly because it is an open and free democracy. The state of Israel belongs to all Jews wherever they live, and is the sole guarantor that the terrible tragedy that caused the deaths of 6 million people will not repeat itself. Thank you.
Difficult what I am telling now. But they tried kill their babies. Kill the babies. You think what I am telling you, but that was better than to let the Nazis experiment about the babies. If our generation is gone, it's gone. And this story should not and cannot be forgotten for one reason, that it should not repeat itself. That is the last time the photo what I had before the Holocaust. My younger brother and sister were killed in Auschwitz.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 2022.
Number is 18,572. That is what I was. I didn't call me, I was not my name. We were not humans. We were only a number. And we were taken also only for a number.
98-year-old Lily Everett is extraordinary. And she and her grandson, or great-grandson in fact, have made millions of people, many of them young people, engaged in the story of the Holocaust. And a few months ago, published a book, Lily's Promise, which I thoroughly recommend, sharing their story and their relationship, particularly about Lily's experiences during the Holocaust. And we're here today to conduct this interview on the occasion of Yom HaShoah, which is hosted by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. So Lily, if we might begin, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood home in Hungary And maybe share about this gift of the beautiful angel necklace that you're wearing
Yes,
today.
I will. I had my best parents in the world, what anybody could only dream of. I had a very nice childhood. We were a nice Jewish family with 6 children. I am the oldest.
Amazing. And you were gifted by your parents for a birthday.
Yeah, with my nice little golden pendant, a little angel.
Then, particularly for the Jews of Hungary, the Holocaust came a bit later, and you were aware of the war, but it wasn't as difficult from 1939 as it was for more Western European countries. So probably early 1944, do you want to tell us how your life changed?
When they invaded, then the war was really already over. 99% of Jewish population of Europe was already dead. We thought, we know it is the war is over. We were sure that we will survive. But not that happened.
And then you were rounded up for the ghetto in your town.
First, we were rounded up for the ghetto. Yeah. When we were in the ghettos, then we have to leave our nice homes. And inside the home, a house, we had to, families lived in one room. Then one day they said, we have to come very quick. They gave us a half an hour. You can pack something. You will come, you will be sent to work.
And how old were you, Lily, at that date?
On that date, I was 20. We could take very little with us, but I liked so much, and that was the present for my mother. We know there's something that should be hidden. Gold we should not take. So my brother, I hide it in my mother's shoes.
In the heel of your mother's shoe, amazing.
Yeah, but when we arrived, I don't know why. Why my mother said we should change shoes, and that it is that this little golden angel survived Auschwitz. But quite a lot of people ask that, how can that be? It is impossible. And they are right, because they took away the shoes as well. But it looks like they don't have enough shoes anymore, so they keep our shoes.
Unbelievable.
And like that, it's survived.
And tell us about the day you arrived in Auschwitz.
So when we arrived, we were already half dead. When we arrived, a man was standing with a stick in his hand for movement. He sent people or to right or to left. People who were sent to the right, they were straight taken to the crematorium. But we did not know what happens.
And your mother and your youngest brother and sister?
Was taken from one side. And I, with my 2 younger sisters, were to the other side. And that was the last time when I saw my mother and my sister. I was the eldest, and I had to look after my sisters.
It's an extraordinary story of courage. What do you think? Where do you think you found the courage, Lily?
Because I promised for my father I will look after my sisters. not for much before when my father get ill.
So
And
before your father
I
was
saw
unwell.
I have to do it. I must do it. And thank God, God gave me. God looked for us, and I survived with my sister.
You survived, but you also made a promise to yourself while you were in Auschwitz.
Yeah, that was my second promise. I promised if I survive that, I will tell the world. I will change the world. I thought I will change the world. Change the world, I could not. But I tried what I can do. And today, it is over 70 years, but it happened. But even today, I talk in different organizations, in school, in parliament, everywhere.
So Dov, you came up with the idea of your great-grandmother, beautiful Lily, being able to share her story. And tell us a little bit about that journey. Why did you think that a few sentences on a social media platform would be effective?
As a young person, I'm often taught to be wary of the dangers of social media, hate and misinformation and Holocaust denial and anti-Jewish racism, but racism of all kinds spreads like wildfire on social media. But I recognized that there was a space that was missing, a space for education, and a space not only for education, but to combat the deniers, to combat the misinformation, to combat the people who said the Holocaust never happened or that Hitler missed the Holocaust survivor. And I realized that there's a void that needs to be filled, and we should be the ones that can do that. Somehow my great grandmother's found words to, she says it in the book, you can't explain the unexplainable, but she has to. So she finds those words to do so. And I thought, well, if people can go viral on TikTok or Twitter for dancing and playing with their dogs and cats, then we can too, for spreading these important messages. And thankfully, the response we've had has been very overwhelmingly positive.
And has making these videos changed the relationship between the two of you?
I think.
Became nearer.
Yeah.
You came closer?
Closer.
We spend nearly every day together.
That
So.
is the word.
And we've had incredible, the impact and not only the impact, but the outcome of some of our videos has been unbelievable. So to share those moments together is really, really special. And we're invited to Buckingham Palace to meet with Prince Charles, who wrote the foreword to our book. And it's moments like those that we'll remember forever, but even more so the moments where we're just able to spend Shabbat together or sit here together now, sharing these important stories. I can't even say how honored I am to have that responsibility, to know that I'm going to continue my great grandmother's torch and hopefully light millions of other people, young people's torches across the world.
Couldn't have said it better.
And I want to something say now for the whole world. What is the most important thing? Never, ever give up hope. Because without hope, you cannot live. Because you say, I was so deep down. I was not human. I was not taken for human. It doesn't look that I will survive. And now it is 70 years later. And I am here. And I can turn, and luckily, God gave me, I can tell in my story what it happened, to help, to give something for the world, and say, most important it is, live with hope.
What I'm really happy about is that we're not only reaching people in the UK, and it's not only Jewish people. Of course, this event is for Jewish people, predominantly, I think, in South Africa, but the amount of non-Jewish people who have never heard about the Holocaust, of course, we're very lucky, both in South Africa and in the UK, that it's mandated that you have to learn about the Holocaust in schools. But many countries, it's not. Majority of America, it's not on a federal level, it's on the state level. So half of the states don't even teach about the Holocaust. And in America, we get questions on TikTok, such as, why did you choose Auschwitz? If it was a camp, why didn't you go to a different camp? And these people aren't being racist, they just don't know. And so I'm so glad that we're able to reach out to those people specifically and educate, because those are the people that need to know. Those are the people that in 20 years' time might encounter a denier and say, oh, you might be right, it might never have happened. And the reason they might say that is because they wouldn't have heard a Holocaust survivor. They wouldn't have read books. And that's why it's so
and have
important.
engaged with
Exactly.
with Lily. I think you said it so beautifully here. You said Lily's story is becoming part of me. It's hard to explain. I don't just know it, I feel it deep inside. How do you feel as a survivor of 98, knowing that your great-grandson says he doesn't just know your story, he feels it deep inside?
Because that is not a story. That is life. And life you have to feel.
Lily, we invited to come to South Africa, and Lily would love to come to South Africa.
Very much I would.
But Dov is in the middle of his A-levels, and they were going to come together. So Lily's encouraging me to say maybe next year.
But quick do it.
We remember those soldiers who fought to bring about the downfall of the Nazi tyranny, many of whom lost their lives. To pay tribute to those soldiers and to the others who returned to the shores of their homelands, we call upon Lieutenant Colonel Bill Bergman, chairman of the South African Jewish Ex-Service League, to read the Soldier's Prayer and the Prayer of Remembrance.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the Ukraine, another war is raging in the world. People are fighting to retain their sovereignty from an aggressor who has blatantly invaded their country. Civilians and armed forces, lives are being lost, people and families are being displaced, many buildings are being destroyed, and many of the people there are Jewish. Is this not a reminder of the past? Being Jewish is about remembering. Think about how we remember and relate the miracle of being freed from the bondage in Egypt thousands of years ago, which we read about during our Pesach Seders every year. Being Jewish, we don't forget. Being Jewish, we remember. Today, we remember the 6 million victims of the Holocaust, and we also thank Hashem for those that survived this most horrific period of human suffering and the most unimaginable inhumanity to his fellow beings in all mankind's history. In the words of the late Chief Rabbi, Lord Jonathan Sachs, I quote, Yom HaShoah is a vital day in the Jewish calendar, providing us with a focal point for our remembrance. We cannot bring the dead back to life, but we can bring their memories back to life and ensure that they are not forgotten. We undertake in our lives to do what they were so cruelly prevented from doing in theirs, unquote. Today, we also remember and not forget the soldiers that perished during World War II, who eventually liberated the infamous Nazi concentration camps. Many of these soldiers were Jews, but notwithstanding, we also remember the sacrifice made by other Allied soldiers as well. In tribute to these soldiers, I will relate the Soldier's Prayer in remembrance of their brave souls. At the conclusion, I ask you to repeat after me, we will remember them. The Soldier's Prayer. When you go home, tell of us and say, for your tomorrow we gave out today. Our gift was great, but you must give a greater to complete the plan. We died. Now you must nobly live to make man brother unto man. They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Please stand for the memorial prayer.
אלמלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמות אחינו כל בית ישראל, הקדושים והטהורים, שנפלו בידי הרוצחים ונשפך דמם באושוויץ, מיידניק, טרבלינקה, ובשאר מחנות השמד באירופה, שנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנשרפו ושנטבעו ושנחנקו על קידוש השם, בעבור שכל הקהל הקדוש הזה מתפללים ביד הזכרת נשמותיהם בגני עדן תהי מנוחתם. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמו בבותיהם. אדוני יהון נחלתם, וינוחו על מי ישכבותם בשלום, ונאמר אמן.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודש הבריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. אני מאמין לאמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח
That concludes the ceremony. Thank you for attending.